Ella, you thought that was funny? Any questions? Just fire away. I'm waiting for Ricky to come in. The legend Ricky Hill is coming shortly. Let me see if he's online yet. Not yet. Who's that? Hi, Kieran. Hello. My eyes are bad. Any questions while we wait for Ricky to come in? Fire away. Where's Coach Mark at? Bring him at him, mate. Don't know where he's at, mate. Get working on his suntan, maybe. Give him a text, see where he's at. Maybe I'm just frozen. Here we go. Uncle Ricky is here. He's in the dance. Connecting.
There we go.
Yes. It worked.
Afternoon.
It worked.
Yeah, I'm here, King. What are you saying?
I thought I had my doubts we could pull it off. When I first tried to do it, I had a nightmare.
I'm international, you know that.
Yeah.
Not
Well, I was struggling. I was struggling.
So you got your cup of coffee, you got your mug going.
Cup of tea, and they are the tea bags that you brought over the first time are still going hard.
You're on rations, yeah?
No, I do. I think I don't know what it is. If maybe they're getting old because I've had them for a long time.
Yeah.
So I put two in.
Okay.
But they've been going hard. I still have a box up there, Tetley's.
To get the potency, you got one in there, yeah? Spare one.
A spare one. I got abundance. You brought over like 10 boxes at one time. Tetley's. I've got the luxury of putting 2 tea bags in.
Your team's just gone 3-0 down.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Man City.
Yeah, of course it is. Gooners.
Who scored?
Looks like Fernandinho. No, hold on.
Fernandinho.
No, he made the pass from the back, it says. I'll have a look now.
Look.
Arsenal down to 10 men. Luis give away a penalty and got sent off. He's fought for 2 goals.
You could have put a bet on for that.
Which I think.
Did Biederman say hello? Ryan Biederman, Pam says hello.
Oh, I can't see all the names. Hi. You got him coming up, or have I got him as well?
Can you see him at the bottom?
Yeah, kind of. Tunnel. Who's that joined? Got him to get my minces on me.
Yeah, I'm the same. We're both
blind. Hope all is well.
Blind.
Yes, thank you. Everything's well. Oh, Myla's on. Hi, Myla.
Myla.
Yeah.
Myla trained. Did Myla train today? Yeah, Myla was at training today.
Did she star?
She did. You know what?
Yeah.
In the fitness, she was flying.
Okay.
She was. That's a good telltale sign who's been working at home.
Absolutely.
Because we did 15 minutes technical warm-up, then we went into little 1v1 moves and went to like pass and receiving. And the last 15 minutes did proper doggies, back and forth, hard,
old school
pre-season, old school, short and sharp, go, boom, boom. Myla was there. It was hot as well.
Marcus is in there, yeah? If you can't run, you can't play. Fitness is important.
Yeah,
to do the magic, you got to have the fitness.
Right? That's
Absolutely.
what I can tell him. Mark's in.
Rachel's in.
Haley's in.
In. Aye.
She's got back from injury. She had surgery on her foot.
Okay.
Haley was in there, yeah.
You're taking it easy with her then, Haley?
No, I just throw her back in.
Gradually.
Gradually. Well, the training sessions are, we can only go once a week, so got to try and get some fitness in. Because I think as soon as the game starts, you're going to be flying straight into game. So
Oh, you've got to complete it. Is it the summer season then? You're going to have a summer season or?
it's still in the balance. So
Okay.
they're planning to go ahead depending on phase 4. So phase 4 comes into play, and you can have, I think it's 50 people.
Okay.
Then they might go ahead. So
Okay.
we're planning for the best,
Expecting.
expecting the worst. I don't know.
Who knows?
Who knows? So we'll see. Who's on now? Let me see. I guess we just get started and get flying into it.
Yeah,
Can't wait
I
for
thought we
everybody.
have.
We have, yeah. Right. So I thought two good subjects to talk about would be one that's always good for the kids to take home from, things that they can actually tangibly be inspired by per se, about. And I always, when I always talk to you about it, is, sometimes, under an illusion of, what it takes to make it, the differences, I think it's a big one. Because sometimes I always found, kids I used to work with or have worked with, they go to, like, big Division 1 colleges, they're superstars at high school, they go to college, are doing autographs, and now they're 20, 21, 22, right? Thinking that, that's it, I'm going to make it. And it's not until they try and jump from being an amateur into the pro levels that they maybe per se they're not ready.
Yes.
And that was one thing I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
And then the other thing I think is like the climate right now, about, potentially your story a little bit, and with Black Lives Matter, and coaching opportunities and playing. I think it's quite poignant at the moment, especially. I think everyone saw that really good article that you were in. I shared it on, and some of the parents shared it. So that might be something interesting to talk about while we're on here.
I'm in, whatever music.
Why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wherever's in a dance.
Yeah,
So,
true, right.
and then if anybody's got any questions, then we can kind of go from there.
Hi, Brian.
How's it going?
Yeah.
Brian
People
Douglas
in the
is
house
in.
here. Brian's in. Some familiar faces there. Always good.
Good. So yeah, my perspective was always, you always have like talks with people and parents sometimes when at that 9v9, 11v11 age group, when you're transitioning, and then the jump from youth soccer into like collegiate, or and you're more where it's like from youth soccer into reserves and then into professional. What would be your biggest thing that you've noticed from players that make it and players that don't make it in Europe? And the other side of that question is, while you're working at Tampa, you get a lot of the top college players or even young pros that came to Tampa, trying to jump from collegiate into professional soccer.
I think there's a couple of parts to that question, because in regards to the step from, say, for instance, a youth team to reserves over in this country, or as you say, college to pro in America, a lot of the times it's dependent on the individual having the kind of understanding his game, his role, whatever that may be, in whichever team, whichever organization he's at. I think a lot of times people will have a certain skill, for instance, or they would pride themselves on being very good at this, but they might not have the full dimension in respects to knowing exactly how to operate in the position that that they're asked to play. A lot of the problems I tend to see from that development stage is when you ask someone, what position do you play? A lot of people like to give the generic answer that, well, I can play anywhere, coach. And, anywhere you put me, coach, I can play. Well, that's not really technically true. You should have one particular position that you are the master of in your own mind, in respects to how you will perform at your best. And I think some of the time youngsters can get deluded in respects that they believe that if they say they're multifaceted, it's a bonus for them. But in fact, it's the opposite. It can work against them. I think they should really hone in on developing their skills and their tactical awareness for one position, which they can transmit to other positions, as opposed to saying, I'm pretty fluid at playing anywhere, because that can actually make it a detriment to them. They'll end up being out the side more often than not, as opposed to nailing down a particular position.
So you think at younger ages it's good to be able to play multiple positions growing up?
Without a doubt, you can experiment on them, but the time has to come when you're transitioning through age groups where you have to own one position. You have to say, that's where I play. Otherwise, you will always be used as that person who fills in whenever the sides a player short. Kieran, can you go and play right back? Of course I can, coach. Kieran, can you go and play left back? Of course I can, coach. But at the end of the day, it's not doing Kieran any good, because Kieran needs to develop in one specific position, if that's at all possible.
Yeah, so I mean, I bring that into, with our younger kids, we try and play them in maybe two to three positions as in the younger ages. And then as they get older, they find their position. You know, instead of maybe put them into a box of like, you're that position at such a young age, is move them around. Sometimes, you know, put the fullbacks as wingers, the wingers as fullbacks, just to get different ideas. You know, right wingers with left wingers, switching them around. What I found is quite good is, you know, sometimes centre backs can move into that sixth position at younger ages. But obviously, when they get to that sort of 15, 16 age bracket, is when they start to find their primary position.
Absolutely.
But those younger ages, we try and, you know, throw them into different positions.
I'm of the school and the old school whereby, you know, from 1 to 11, once you're an outfield player, I think you should be able to function wherever you are on the field as if you are a position in that position. So if I come back in defence and I find myself, the fullback's up the field, but I've tracked back in his man, I should be able to hold my own playing as a right back, even though I'm really an inside right or a centre forward, because fundamentally I know the basics of that position. But to say that I own it and I'm going to be elevated from youth team to college to then pro USL or MLS, I don't think I can really do that if I'm that kind of fluent without owning one specific position. But I believe that any player on the field, if they have had the right education, if they have the tactical understanding, they should be able to adapt wherever they find themselves on the field.
Yeah, definitely. So what did you, and now what was, so that's a good point. So, I mean, yeah, we try at younger ages, we try and be a bit more fluid. And then as they get to a certain age, they have to, you know, I always say, you know, don't be a jack of all trades, a master of none. You've got to master that. You've got to know your position and master your position.
Absolutely.
And the progress to that is maybe, you know, sometimes they haven't found their position yet at younger ages. So it's the coach's job to work and see what their physical attributes are, their technical attributes, and kind of find their way.
I mean,
and then
there's been really good prime examples of players who thought they were centre forwards, for instance. Michael Dewberry at Chelsea, who you would know. He thought he was a centre forward. He thought he was going to be, but he didn't have the technical ability or the touch to play as a centre forward. And Peter Shreves saw him and said, you know what, if you work on your basic skills, if you go home in the summer and practice and juggle and pass the ball against the wall, and he was probably 18, 19 at the time, he was very limited in his technical ability. He said, you might be able to earn a living from the game. Michael done that, went back to Chelsea and said, you know, he's still not accomplished enough to play at Chelsea as centre forward, but let's try and put you at the back. You're quick, you're strong, you like to head it. And he had an outstanding career just because he decided to change his position at the right time. And he had a coach that believed that he could adjust to that position. It was more suited.
Yeah, same as like Rio Ferdinand, right? I think at West Ham he was he a forward, right?
I don't know.
Midfielder forward.
Midfielder forward.
When they signed him,
so you know,
coach worked with that.
It's not one size doesn't fit all, but as an individual player in your own development, you can't rely on the coach all the time to always be there to hold your hand, to always tell you what's best for you. You have to feel that yourself, to say, well, I felt a little bit uncomfortable on the left, but I feel a little bit more comfortable in the middle. I don't feel so good back to goal. I like facing the play, so maybe you have to drop a little bit deeper so everything's in front of you. So these are little things as you get older, you have to be aware of yourself, to find the answers.
Yeah. So the highest level, so that transition into pro, like, so once you have mastered that position and know that position, what do you think the difference is between what can players do now at this age that they can learn something from watching this and listening, that they could take to tangibly use in the next sort of 5, 6, 7 years?
What elevates your game more than anything, I think, the higher you go with the better players that you play with, is your speed of thought. It's understanding 2 plays ahead what might happen now. It's drifting into areas where the ball might not be right at this moment in time, but you can see the picture as it's developing. Those little things, you have to start thinking, you and your individual touches of the ball. You have to think, where's the spaces? When can I get there? How long do I be there? And the quicker you do that, and it's all about timing, particularly when you go higher. They say the ball doesn't get tired. It's the speed of the pass that beats, speed of the ball that beats teams, not speed of players. And it's true, because the higher you go, the better the defenders will be. It doesn't matter how quick you are. If you're running offside, they're going to just let you run offside. If you run too early, I mean, if you don't run, they drop out, because they're reading the game all the time. So I think it's that thought, that intelligence, the IQ, and then the speed of thought.
Yeah, so we took a bunch of kids to Europe, and you went on the trip as well into Sweden.
Yeah.
And the biggest, when I was on those trips and taking kids over, a lot of them were development players from academies, and they went into play, D1, and some went into MLS, and some go to play, professionally within Europe. But usually they're quite the biggest deficiencies that I saw, where they were great kids, they were fit, that their rollers out, and they were like all about it. But as soon as they went over to Europe, they just lacked that detail in their technical ability, the technique, and mastering the technique. They're very athletic, good kids, but I always found that that technical piece was lacking versus kids in Europe. And I don't know what you saw when you went to Europe as well with some of these Americans, because these American players that we saw and you saw were high level.
Yeah. And you're right when you say, Key, they great kids, as you rightly said, 100% committed, but what they kind of lacked was their own individual ability to problem solve. The coach obviously will set his game plan, and you want to try to adhere to that as much as you can. But once the whistle goes and once you're over the white line, there are certain times where you have to start thinking for yourself in regards to, is this right that I'm standing there now, or should I come in a little bit further off the field, or there's danger coming on the left-hand side? And you have to recognise these things. It's not a coaching manual, it's about that feel. And I think the American players that I saw on that trip when I went to Denmark and Sweden was that they didn't really think for themselves in a clear, concise manner. They weren't very fluid in their game in respects to, they would stay in one position and control that position and roam that position the whole game. It goes up and down in straight lines, where football's not like that. There are times when you have to do the unexpected yourself. You have to make unselfish runs without the ball to create space for other people. These are things, the little components that you must have if you're going to go any higher than probably the collegiate level they were at. So ultimately that let them down, and then because they weren't doing that, when they actually got the ball, it was too predictable. By the time they touched it, the other team were pressing them. There was no other outlets for them. They hadn't thought 2 passes earlier. It just wasn't fluid in terms of the whole combination play was poor. So I think it's very important that even at college level, these guys have to be introduced to that kind of quick into passing, one touch, two touch, movement, selfish run, dragging people out of spaces, sacrificing yourself by moving off the ball so someone else comes in the space. And I've had it when I was at Tampa, and we'd get players up from college. They seemed very naive tactically by the time they came out of college into like the pro environment where I was at. So they struggled to really make a mark.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So that's good. It's good information for young kids as well, coaches listening as well. So I think just listening to you talking as well, I think, we've got you on the call and we could talk football all day, but I'm more fascinated personally about some of your stories, right? That no one knows, because everyone knows that you played for Luton, you played for England, high level coach, but some of the cooler stories were, if I put it into today's market, like when you were almost signed by Atletico Madrid, like you were almost signed by PSG, like kids know those teams now, Atletico Madrid, PSG, and those stories are probably some of my
favorite ones, yeah.
Favorite ones, because I thought if there's a player in England now that's playing for England and PSG wants them, or Atletico Madrid's after them, then that gives people a perspective of like what level of player you were back in the day, and no one knows that stuff that's behind the scenes.
Okay.
Now people know because like Instagram and Facebook and news and Twitter, like it'll be Ricky Hill's in Atletico, he's in Madrid right now, as Virgil signing a contract, and back in the day there wasn't any of that, was there?
No, unfortunately for me.
Unfortunately for you.
Because I broke in the team, as you know, at 17, and I came and hit the ground running, made a goal, scored a goal in 22 minutes, my very first game. So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm catapulted to this hero status at the club, and everyone's sort of like new whiz kid type of thing. But not only did I do that, I was also pretty consistent in my performance for my age when I got into the first team at that tender age. And there were teams that admired me, lots of teams I knew, but I didn't have an agent. I was never told by the club or the manager that certain people were there to watch me or wanted to sign me. I know.
Because now,
now
you at 14 you've got agents,
exactly.
At 15 you've got an agent.
Exactly. At 10, Mitchell Thomas has got a young kid at Eli, his name is at Chelsea. He's from Dunstable, just up the road, Australian.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently he's supposed to be the next best thing, and Mitchell's looking out for him. Not allowed to sign him, but he's obviously in with the father and looking out for his best interest. But so, I ended up playing at Luton for too long. If it was this day and age, I would have gone within 18 months, quite comfortably, if that, maybe before that. And even towards the end, when my contract was expiring, there was a number of clubs that were interested in signing me. One of them, as you say, was Gerard Houllier at Paris Saint-Germain. The problem with that deal was the president hadn't seen me play. Gerard had seen me play. I think he saw me at QPR and a couple of other places. I scored at QPR, and he wanted to sign me, but the president's like... Gerard
Houllier is the former French national team coach. French national team, Liverpool.
Yeah. Liverpool, Aston Villa.
Did he win
I don't think he won the Champions League. I don't think so.
Who? Big time coach.
Oh yeah, and globally. So he wanted to sign me, and but the president hadn't seen me play. So he said, "Ricky, if you don't sign," and at the time I was speaking to him, I was in the hotel in Madrid, sorting out my deal. You were in Madrid. Sorting out my deal with Atletico, and he got me on the phone.
So you're in Madrid, sign a negotiating with Atletico Madrid
with Big Ron,
PSG with Ron Atkinson, and PSG's on the phone as well.
I'm in the bedroom on the phone to Gerard Houllier, and I'm saying, Mr. Houllier, Ricky, he says, we want to sign you. The president hasn't seen you play, and they like to think they sign the players. He said, I hope it go. If that's what you want, and I hope everything goes through, then I understand. He said, if not, re-sign at Luton. And for something, he said, for something like 250,000, that was kind of, a nominal figure back in the day. He said, because Paris Saint-Germain, we have a lot of money, so that's not a problem. He said, what we'll do is that when the season starts, well, I'll come over with the president, we'll meet with you, we'll go out for dinner, we'll do the deal, and then you'll sign for us at Christmas when we're allowed to sign one player, which was called their joker. They used to have a system in France. You're only allowed to sign one player throughout the whole season. You had to finish with the squad that you started with. So I said,
which is
okay.
obviously so different for now, right?
Absolutely.
Now you can sign anybody.
You can sign anytime, anybody. Oh, we've got the windows. You've got the transfer windows.
Yeah.
Cut off September 1st and then starts again January 1st. But so I was having the conversation. I was downstairs negotiating my deal with Ron Atkinson and the vice chairman, who was being elected to the presidency because the president had passed away, and they do it by election
In Spain,
from the
they
members.
elect the president.
So we were campaigning throughout the week, going to various little places and talking about what we'd do. Ron Atkinson would say, well, if I get the manager's position, Ricky Hill's going to be my first players in the international. Then we got one more foreign player. We were only allowed to sign 2 foreign players at the time. So
That's a big deal for a club like Atletico Madrid,
correct.
being one of the
so
two only foreigners.
I was Ron's first one who was bringing in if he got the job. So as it comes, long story short, I leave on the Friday to come back. The vote is on the Saturday. It's done by ballot. So the vote's on the Saturday. I'm going to get the news Saturday night. Sure enough, the phone rings. Our guy that we've backed, who was the original vice president, he hasn't been elected. It's Jesus Gil that got the election. Jesus Gil brought in Paulo Frucha and someone else. But the guy that he brought in as the coach wasn't Ron either. But Jesus Gil got rid of him after 3 months, and Ron got the job.
Then got the job.
By that time, they got 2 foreign players already. So that one, but worse than that, I've got some bad luck in my time. So worse than that, Gerard Houllier starts the season so badly. I re-signed at Luton with the 250,000 get-out clause in my contract. That once that figure's paid, triggered, I can leave.
And PSG that was the deal.
That was the deal.
Do that. We'll come over and then we'll buy you at Christmas.
Right.
When they're allowed
what
to re-sign
happened?
it. Yep.
Gerard Houllier season starts. PSG are terrible. He's having a nightmare, and they sack him. So that's my move to France gone out the window at that stage. But credit to him, when I was moving in 3 years later, I stayed at Luton and I was moving in 89. He's the one that recommended me to Le Havre Football Club, where I ended up going. It was Gerard's recommendation.
Very good.
Yeah, so it's good, man.
So those 2 stories always
make you chuckle.
They made me chuckle because, they're bad luck, almost bad luck. You
can feel my pain.
You can feel the pain, but in a way that, the fact that, clubs like Atletico Madrid, PSG were courting you, were trying to sign you. I think that's in a backwards way a compliment to your career, in a ability. Obviously a bittersweet story.
Totally.
Is what they would say,
I've got a few more of them.
Sweet.
The Tottenham ones and other ones.
Newcastle. I mean, we talk about Newcastle.
Newcastle. I was young and naive. I didn't know the football industry, and again, like I say, I had no representation, no agents, no nothing. And I got a phone call one night, a Sunday night. I was at home. I picked the phone up, and it was a strange voice. It was from up north, a Geordie accent. He said, "Is that Ricky Hill?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "It's Arthur Cox, Newcastle United." I said, "Oh, hi, Mr. Cox. How you doing?" He said, "Ricky, just want to know, are you willing to come up and play for the Geordies?" I said, "Yeah, of course." He said, "Well, David knows what we think of you. We've been in touch and we'll get back in touch with you shortly." Didn't hear another word.
And Arthur Cox was like legendary Newcastle.
Yeah, before Gaza and Waddle, that era. It was that era. But, the thing about that was I was told that our manager at Luton would always anyone that called, he would just say, "Not for sale."
And put the phone down.
Not for sale. But without even ever once relaying any of the interest to me. Which is sad now because you think, well, okay, if I was a manager and someone came in of a better standing, a higher standing, I would at least go to the person and say, "Listen, so-and-so's been into you, is interested. Are you okay with it? Or I give you the option because it changes your life.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
Yeah.
He realised that stylistically, I was important to the team that he was trying to create in order for him to be elevated
Be
to
successful.
another level. Yeah,
As a coach.
absolutely.
Which is, and it's even more ironic if you think about today's climate in football, in soccer, because, you know, with the leaks and social media, you know, it's night and day.
No one's going to stay. No one's going to stay at a club for 15 years now. Very rarely, like I did.
Not, yeah, and Newcastle coming in, Tottenham coming in,
Arsenal,
Atletico,
Ipswich, Paris
Atletico
Saint-Germain.
Madrid.
Yeah. No one's going to do it. Okay? No one's going to do it. But you live and learn.
Past life,
I did. I was a bad man. I was a till and a hum in my past life. Sure, I was.
But yeah, it's bittersweet because it's also, you know, like I said,
a backhanded compliment.
It's a backhanded compliment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah. So so you played, obviously had a very successful career and moved into coaching. I think we've talked a lot about football, but I think even right now in America and all around the world is, you know, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
You know, I've even, you know, witnessed it working with you when I've even contacted, you know, potential professional contacts and clubs, where even personally, to my own naivety and disbelief that your resume is so strong, it's a gimme. I'm almost like excited to contact certain pro organizations. I'm like, I'm bringing them the man, I'm bringing them the
Chattanooga, whoever.
Yeah, Indy.
Yeah.
It was, you know, lots of pro teams.
Yes. And startup ones in the USL.
Yeah, startup and bringing them and with the you know, that resume in place is you know, second to none, record second to none within those, you know, that league. You know, an unbelievable resume, and then not to get a callback in some situations for me is I didn't quite comprehend it until I would reach out to GMs, owners, you know, representing, you know, potential opportunities and not get a callback. And that's why I really realized there was, you know, discrimination when it came to that, because there was no other answer, because there's the person that got the job resume isn't even
doesn't matter, Kez.
Not even close.
It doesn't matter. I mean, that's been part of my journey. Yeah, once I finished playing, and I got my first gig in Tampa just by chance. I was still playing, and Rodney decided to get rid of two coaches, Rodney Marsh and said, Ricky, would you ever go? Yeah. Would you ever go? I said, yeah, of course I will. And I was captain of the team, and we've done really well. Won 13 in a row, got coach of the year, went to 2 national finals during that season. So, but then still got relieved of my duties 2 days after the national final because Rodney and I didn't have a relationship, which was his choice, his prerogative. But I've always written off in the right way to apply for positions that were available. Most of the time in England, or every time, you wouldn't get a reply. You wouldn't even get the courteous, well, thank you very much for your interest, but we decided to go in this direction. You get nothing. So your CV, your application would just be out there in the air somewhere. You don't know if they received it or not received it. So for me, it's always been a situation where I thought, well, I'm going to try to prove myself as best as I can and try and go wherever the opportunity arises to coach. And I've been fortunate, I'm a lot more fortunate than a lot of the black ex-players that I played with of my generation in terms of being involved actively with the game after our careers are over. There's so many that have never again been involved in the professional game. Now I think that's criminal. Is there an issue? Of course there's an issue. There was an issue when I was even trying to become a player in 1975, 76. There was only probably 5 black players in the whole 92 football clubs in England at the time. So I'm first generation black player, now I'm going to be first generation black coach. I've got really no chance of people really thinking, oh, is he capable? Can he be capable? Because the stigma is, the perception is, the other English players that were captains for their teams and, you know, spoke with the coaches and got commonality with the chairman and the directors and the chief executives. They're perceived to be able to coach, and let's give them a go. But the black players, unfortunately, they haven't been afforded that same luxury. So I've always tried to go against the grain, try to show that, you know, we are as capable. Yes, we growing up, as you know what it was like in Kilburn and Cricklewood and Wembley for stop and search and police harassment, and it was mainly with the black community. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've been stopped in my car by police officers driving in London, going through wherever, and until they've realised that, you know, you're a footballer, that's great, then you move on. Sorry to disturb you, off you go. You know, Sharon and I were even followed from Shona's school when Shona was nursery, 3 years old. I put her in the back of the car. I was waiting up there for her. We collected her, put in the back of the car. We drove off down in Kingsbury, went down and put her to a shop. The police followed us. Next thing, the police woman's come in the shop and said, is that your daughter? So I said, excuse me? So I said, is that your daughter? Well, because we've been watching and you were out the field and you collected. And like Sharon just went crazy. She was a wild. I just said, yeah, yes, she's our daughter. Not a problem. Off you go. So there has been a lot of prejudice towards black people from, you know, as long as I've been alive, it's been like that. And not a lot's changed. And the Black Lives Matter cause right now and movement right now, they're not talking about just the indiscriminate murder of, you know, George Floyd. They're talking about opportunity and the lack thereof, the opportunity, just in everything from housing to social injustices to inequalities. That's what they're talking about. So for me, I've always I'm not defined by the colour of my skin. Never have been. I have no hang-ups on that, no inferiority complex on that matter. I just get up. I was at top sets at school, you know, with all the clever boys. I was up there with them doing my maths and English and science. You know, I was top in sports. So for me, I'm just saying, well, give me an opportunity and you'll see. Now, everywhere I've been, barring the 4 months I had at Luton, I've either won the championship there or won something and left the club in a much better state, and won the Coach of the Year award. So I'm an example of what can happen if you give people opportunities. Whether I've got enough is another thing. I think for me, my skill set deserves to have been seen at a higher level. When I consider what's going on in the MLS now, I've worked against people like Mark Dos Santos and Giovanni Savarese and Adrian Heath, for instance. Without being disrespectful, I was a much better player than all of them, and that's just been the truth. But they managed to transfer their playing ability into opportunities to go to the highest level as coaches and managers now, where that hasn't happened for me at this moment in time.
Yeah, they were citing that in England, wasn't they, with Gerrard and Lampard and getting opportunities. Southgate mentioned something about it.
Yeah.
Players being fast tracked.
But black players won't get done.
Like Sol Campbell's.
No. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong in terms of fast tracking anybody, because I've always subscribed to the theory that you really can't be a manager unless you've had some kind of coaching background. You just don't go from player to manager generally. You have to build some kind of track record. You have to hone your own skills as a coach. You have to work out what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And that's only from a practical perspective, outside of the business that you have to learn as a manager in terms of personalities and transfers and various other things and egos that you have to massage in the boardroom levels and stuff. So it's very difficult. I just think the UK is still going to take a little bit of time for it to turn around fully. I can't see it happening anytime soon.
Yeah, for sure. How do you think change will come apart? So I think England's different, isn't it? From there's still obviously the same issues within
Yeah.
England. I think America might be a little um, slightly more
America,
intense.
America. The difference between England and America is America's got that raw history of racial tension.
Yeah,
That's gone back for 400 years. England have had that same length of slavery and servitude, but not had the raw tension to go with it. So everyone thinks the empire, England went over the whole world and conquered the empire in a lot of places and made them part of the Commonwealth. But what England have done well is the power construct that they've put in place, which is that unseen glass ceiling that you can't call them out for being overtly racist, particularly because they're very particular in how they've put the structures and policy in place. But they're there to deter you from being able to take that next step forward. So until my quest was when I wrote to Nike, I think again when I was with UK 3 years ago, I read an impassioned letter I wrote to them, Mark Parker at the headquarters, saying, well, you are complicit. You talk about you support black artists and you support black athletes and you're all for just do it and you can from the court to the boardroom all the slogans and sound bites. But I said, but you're sitting back and you're allowing the Premier League, who you've been funded from day one, you've been their ball sponsor, to not employ any diversity or not many in the technical staffing arenas of all clubs. We're not just talking about the head coaching position, but any of the staffing positions. There's very few minority ethnics there. And I said, if you're funding them, and just like the TV companies, if you're giving them 180 million a year to run their business, but you're not demanding that they show it the same reflection of diversity that your organisation has, then you're being complicit because you're just paying to keep them in the status quo. I wrote to them 3 years ago, I never got a response, but that's the only way it's going to change is the sponsors are the ones that will dictate by putting sanctions against the clubs if they don't have a real 2020 diversity look amongst their organisation.
Yeah, I think you were acclaimed and noted for meeting with the Rooney Rule. The Rooney Rule being NFL initiative to give minorities an opportunity to interview for positions, which was implemented within the NFL. And Ricky met with the NFL and the lawyers and brought that back to England, to the PFA, Professional Football Association, which they have somewhat tried to, in some fashion, implement, whether it's going to make change or not.
Yeah.
And you were what's the word I'm looking for? Accredited for bringing the Rooney Rule, which is from the NFL to England.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite an achievement there as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you put it that way, it hasn't really made that much of a difference.
Different
to date.
But the question,
to date,
talking about it, but actually going out there and making
absolutely, it hasn't in football, okay. But in regards to other industries, you see, when I knew about the Rooney Rule before it was even implemented in America. I was in Trinidad coaching, and it was due to be implemented the following month. And I thought this is a great initiative. We've had trouble as black players being included in the professional environment once our careers are over. I'm sure our country, being as liberal as they are, will accept this, roll something out similar to this. And I wasn't asking for them to implement the Rooney Rule. It was a ruling akin to the Rooney Rule. So you could take parts of it out which suit Britain as opposed to America with the positive discrimination and everything. So we decided I brought it over, met with the NFL in 2003, brought it to England in 2004. They loved the concept, but then they thought it was positive discrimination, so they couldn't do it. brought it to my union in 2005. And I said, well, it's a willingness. You have to work through this. America have done this. It's worked for them. It's helped to increase the head coaching positions at certain franchises. It's given people a chance to be heard about their philosophy, their ideology, you know, the little bit of identity of who they are. And I said, that's all that this initiative is there for. It's to try to give you a pathway to meet the people that make decisions. They denied, they said they couldn't do it. The Premier League categorically said we don't need it. Our league is very diverse and we don't really need anything like that. We kept going, kept battering away. 2 years ago, the FA rolled it out in the same manner that it's in the NFL now. All their positions that become available, they're going to interview a minority candidate. Yesterday, the Premier League chief executive said we have to look at quotas for our league now when they refused to 8 years ago. So in terms of what I was ahead of the curve in regards to what needed to be happened. But again, I didn't want it to be a tokenistic gesture, which the ones that are in place at the moment, they're filled with all sorts of caveats and all sorts of addendums hidden in there that deny the club from adhering to a proper policy. There's no policing, no one gets fined if they don't follow the procedure and the pledge they've said. So it's really a paper tiger. But, you know, for me, I'm proud that I brought it here. And the biggest part of that is lots of businesses, the BBC, Channel 4, ITN, South African Rugby, English Cricket Board, they've all used the Rooney Rule as the model, the template that they've then worked at their hiring of diversity policies. No one knew the name Rooney Rule in England until I brought it there.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's quite an achievement.
Don't pay the bills though, because
don't pay the bills. They're going to keep you in Mike and I.
Exactly. The blueberry ones though, only.
Got a question here.
Yeah.
Ricky, what would you suggest when we have a soccer break regards to fitness and exercise? It was a question someone just fired in.
Lovely. Depends on how long the season that you've already endured. Because if you've played for 7 months or 8 months, your body definitely needs a little break from it. From soccer in particular. You can do other sports. You can go and play tennis if you want to get the exercise. You can go and play table tennis. You can do various stuff like that. But I would stay away from the pounding and the physical exertion of more soccer on top of soccer. Give yourself 3 to 4 weeks off to recharge the batteries and the body, and then start to build up again with small-sided games with your friends, general kick-arounds, and build your fitness levels from there. Exercise, I wouldn't go too heavy on any stamina-based exercise if you've had a long season already.
Someone actually just messaged earlier, said they quoted that you're a ping pong shark.
Had a shady upbringing. Ping pong shark. Yeah, I must say, well, when you're in London, mum's out working, no dad around, older brother, what are you going to do? So Monday night, youth club, Tuesday night, boys brigade, Wednesday night, youth club, Thursday night, boys brigade, Friday night, youth club. So out of mum's way, out of mum's head, pool, table tennis, darts, all those kind of indoor games. Yeah, we played quite a lot of ball line coordination.
Well, same as we had a youth centre and had the same thing, ping pong. I remember the guy that worked there was so good. He'd come in and go, whoop, and he put a spin on it, and he's like, oh, forget that, man. He was too good.
Don't worry, I'll play him, don't worry, because I'm not frightened of that.
Putting the top spin, side spin on for them.
I'm not frightened of that. One of my PE teachers actually played for England.
Oh, nice.
So funny enough, you'll know the people involved. So it was myself, Steve Gattin, Arsenal, Brighton, and Mike Gattin, captain England at cricket. We were the school 1, 2, and 3 for table tennis.
Oh, they're in the same school as you?
Yeah, Steve was in my year group. Steve and I were in the same team. He signed for Arsenal at 14. I was out there in the wilderness. He was playing for County, Borough County. I was playing for no one.
Oh, and his brother's like really famous cricket player.
Yeah, he's the captain. He was England captain for many, many years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good to know that. Learn some new stories
Yeah,
now.
yeah. John Kelly Boys. There I knew then. John Kelly Boys School.
Man, I scored 4 against them one time, mate.
Of course you did.
Game finished 4-3.
Wasn't in my era, mate. That's for sure. Where were you at the time then? Wembley.
Hampstead.
You was at
Cricklewood.
Hampstead. Oh, no, you were at Hampstead. Yeah. Litchfield Road.
Yeah. We played at your school.
Okay.
Grounds. There's trains going. I remember I scored one with the right, one left. I scored a header and I scored over a kick.
Perfect hat trick, I think. Perfect hat trick.
4 in it. And then but the other kid scored. There was another kid for the school and he scored 3 for John Kelly. I was like
buzzing.
I remember that game to this day.
Cushy.
My school was terrible. They were, I mean, riff-raff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've covered some good subjects, I thought.
No, wonderful.
Yeah, so we can wrap up. You can tell everyone about your exciting opportunity, perhaps coming up in Jamaica.
Yeah, once COVID-19 allows us to move on with our lives in general, I'm taking up the post as the Director of Youth Development for the Jamaican Football Federation. But it's kind of two-pronged, whereby I'm working with the Jamaican Federation, but not for them. But what I set up my own Caribbean elite player development program, which is going to work between the 15 years old and 17-year-olds. I'm going to go through the whole island, identify the better players, work with specific groups in different regions, and see if I can get a few up to speed where maybe they can start to infiltrate the European market and other markets outside of just the Americans and the Jamaican Caribbean region. Because Raheem Sterling's a global star, he's a world star now. He came out of Jamaica many, many years ago. But there are talented people there, but I don't know if the development process and the expertise is there at this moment in time. So I'm going to take that challenge up and see if I can improve the status quo or the stats at this moment in time.
Very good. Some message here. When are we going to see you again in Chicago?
Whenever I get invited. I hope it's not -17 though.
The first time you came, it was in the
winter, right? Kids, what did you do that to me for? Why did you do that?
The second time you came, it was roasting.
The second time was
hot.
Oh gosh, yeah, beautiful. Even when it was cold, it's still pretty good. So the wife's just telling me, just so you got to go up.
Yeah. All right, Rick, we'll let you go. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. Good seeing you. Love to everyone. Yeah, be good. Take care, Kes. Regards to everyone. Bye. Be good. Bye, mate.